Hitler in the first place?
So God says the reason that we brought everybody together here tonight isn't for this Q&A. The reason we brought everybody here tonight is because you are the individuals who are going to be most affected when this information comes out. Meaning you are extremely alive. So God says the reason that we brought everybody together here tonight isn't for this Q&A. The reason we brought everybody here tonight is because you are the individuals who are going to be most affected when this information comes out. Meaning you are extremely vulnerable to being regurgitated. Is this a spirit word? Of course. Regurgitated? Yes. So the words reach, is that in there? No. Regurgitated. 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 Dated, is that in there? Yes. Reacher. A reach. A reach. A reacher. A reacher. What is this word about? What's it related to? It's a combination of from this set point on, and herein lies the treasure. From this date on, herein lies the treasure. Is a condition that is available to all forms of interaction. That interaction that occurs on a scope far larger than 3 dimensions is a scope accessible by many beings. So as soon as you hear this information, you are privy to a scope of dimension that can leave you vulnerable to the wrong kind of attention. So why you're here is to alert you to this, to give you tools to form an alliance, and then to identify the parts of you that need protection. What we mean is these parts of you are not physiological. Excuse me. The air conditioning needs to be turned on. The physiological of you is fine. There isn't anything that can be damaged. There are aspects of your life that can become very inconvenient or inconvenienced. There are psychological prelevances. A prelevance is when relevance and presence are the same thing. So think of presence of mind, relevance to. So presence of mind and relevance, meaning you can feel sometimes as if you're losing your mind. So you're being forewarned, and in that forearmed. Now, once this information gets out into the public in a big way, you're not so vulnerable, because you become not the target anymore. You become just one of many who become targets. And these targets, when they're spread out, there's nothing anyone can do from the other side. That said, just as you are vulnerable, you are also being protected. And that protection comes in a much higher range, so you need to be more resolute in your spiritual practice. And that spiritual practice isn't something that's there just to make you feel better. It's there to shore up all of the aspects of you that are connected to the higher planes. You were put on this earth for a very important reason, and this is just one of those many reasons that are starting to reveal themselves. The United States is a precious democracy, and that democracy represents the freedom of God. That freedom is fragile when it comes to the Anunnaki and their ability to interrupt the human mind. The human mind is so manipulatable. To manipulate the human mind by higher orders is simple. So those who have ulterior motives for the human minds want more than anything for humans to stay in states of fear. So your very personal manner of adapting to the army of God that fights against any kind of darkness and enslavement must be resolute. You must know that you're here specifically for keeping humans free, in addition to what your individual roles are in the world. So freedom comes at a cost. It means you are responsible for maintaining that freedom. And the United States is a precious freedom that is fragile when related to money. Money is the one thing that makes humans in the United States afraid of anything that could attack them. They become in fear when they worry about money. And it's an illusion, because money is a flow of energy, and if you learn to work the flow, it's just as easy as anything else spiritually. As easy as it is to bring peace to your mind and peace to your heart is as easy as it is to make money. Money is a flow of energy, and what you feed into it, you receive. But if you feed into it fear, then it doesn't flow. And not only does it not flow, but you become vulnerable to that which can enslave you to it. And that's what they want. They want corporations. They want people who need a job. They want people to want a job. There isn't anything to fear in the way of you becoming a victim to the Anunnaki. That's not what we want you to worry about. What we want you to worry about is that if this world becomes enslaved by its own fear, it will not be long before the Anunnaki find their perfect little puppet to begin the march of the 7 veils. Is that March of the 7 veils? So the 7 veils represent a seduction, and those 7 veils of seduction are worth a source talk in and of themselves. But they are a seduction of leadership, a seduction of yellow worth, gold? No, yellow worth. What is yellow worth? Don't worry about that. This is going in a direction we aren't ready to describe right now. Just know that there is a seduction of power that occurs when the people are afraid. And the one that is most capable of leading you into that, leading you as in a nation, leading you into that, is one that's already standing on a podium ready to lead. We don't want to name names. We don't want to begin a discussion that could cause people to train their mind on any individual. We want people to train their mind on being free and how to maintain that freedom, and noticing what the underlying manipulation of someone who has the desire for power is. So that's just the opening, and now we'd like to address some of your questions because we know that you're very curious and that curiosity is worthy. So let's work on some of those now. So the first question that was asked is, how did the Anunnaki make contact with Hitler in the first place? And it was through mindfulness. Hitler was working in a very high mode of operation. Every high mode of operation has its mindfulness training. Mindfulness training is opening the mind to receive information from alternative sources, sources other than your own thinking thoughts. Those sources can come from any number of worlds or any number of systems of spirit. And in this case, Hitler and many of his ring leaders were deep in the occult and mindfulness. And in the course of doing that, they were training in telepathy. And it was telepathic communication that began the relationship with Hitler. So that's in short how that began. We'd like to answer the next question because we think that has a lot of significance for what you and others are going to be doing in your relationship with Sandra and the information that we deliver through her. How can any beings separate from God? I need a drink of water. Now, the reason Sandra needed a drink of water for that is because we put in her mind a notion. The notion that something can separate from itself. And in that separation, there is a very drying effect. So think of that for a moment. What is the separation of drying? Linda, you're being called to answer that as best you can. Let me get you off mute. Oops, you muted yourself, so unmute you. You're muted. Unmute yourself. Can I hear you?
How's that?
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so, and you're on my screen. How can the separation of dryness would be, how do we pull the fluid of life out?
Yes. Yes. Pull the fluid of life out. What else do you want to ask her? Because I got to change this over. God says, that's all for now. Yeah, I guess God knew I wasn't the one to answer that because I didn't know it. God says, right. So when you pull the life essence away from a beingness, what is causing the pull? And we want, Eric, if you're still there, can you answer that one? You're muted. You've muted yourself. You have to unmute.
Okay, the question was, what is causing the pull of what's pulling the life essence out?
Right. What is the pulling?
It seems like a void of some kind.
Right.
You need a void for a flow of energy from one place to another.
You mean like a vacuum?
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I'm a little confused where this is going myself.
Okay. What we'd like you
Could you repeat the
to,
question?
well, what we'd like you to identify here is that the separation from God, the nature of a being that is separate from God and has been separate from God for a long time, is a being that is separating from itself. If God is in all things, if God is in every cell of the universe, to separate from God, you're separating from yourself. You're separating some aspect of you from yourself in order to do that. So the question to you is, what is the pulling? When you separate, what is the pulling?
It's a dispatch. You're being dispatched from what you were used to, what you were a part of. The pulling,
How are you using the word dispatch?
released,
Yes.
separated. In computer terms, it'd be like you're firewalled away.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly right. That's why we had you answer it. Because it is an electronic christening, a christening of electronic what? This is a barrier. What creates that firewall?
In computers or in spirituality?
In computers, and we'll make the relationship.
In computers, you have a firewall piece of software, which could be on a router or it could be on a computer that's hosting the network.
And what is it doing to keep others out?
It's blocking ports of access into the system.
You got it. I'm just going to keep you guys unmuted. Go ahead and unmute yourselves so I can go back and forth between you. Ed, you two, and Linda. Good. All right. Who's presenting now? Is it me, or who do you guys see in the big picture?
I see you.
Okay. And Linda, you're not unmuted yet. All right. So God says,
There I am.
okay, great. So God says, imagine this happening. And each side of this is signal. These are two signals. Now these signals are not communicating with each other, they're communicating within their realm of signal. So that which can identify this signal is communicating with it, that which can identify with this signal is communicating with it. But they are separating from each other because, as Eric pointed out, of a firewall. And in that separation then, the firewall that occurs, there's no more port of access to either one. Over time, the Anunnaki have developed a portless system with God. So even if they wanted to communicate with God, they couldn't, because there's nothing left in their system that would allow them. They've evolved it out of themselves. So now they are generation after generation after generation without communication skills with higher spirit. Ooh, what kind of awful being does that make? Well, what's worse isn't the kind of awful being that makes. What's worse is, how do they stay alive? How do they have life? They have life by sucking life off of
Are
other
the
beings.
Anunnaki an entire race
Yes.
completely separated from God?
Yes.
What about Enki? People have referred to Enki as like leaving Enki's gift to the human people.
Not the same thing at all.
Okay.
And that is something we're going to clarify also. There are some people who believe that the Inky and the Anunnaki are the same, and they are not. The Inky are a tribe of people who achieved the mastery. And in that ascension mastery, they built systems of ascension in sovereignty, which allowed for natural progressions of higher order. You mean like if they were a bunch of Jesuses? Right. In mass, they created a series of Christs, individuals who could live beyond the grave in a manner of enlightenedness, illuminescence, but not exactly the illuminescence of angelic form, just illuminescent bodies.
Like Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yes. Yes. It's a perfect example. The Inky were a system of light in human form that achieved a induction into light. Wow, who are the Inky? This is Sandra asking. I don't know who they are. I mean, who were they? How do we know about them?
If you're asking me, I heard Enki as a personality within the Anunnaki, so I probably have the wrong information. But
You're not the only
the
one
information,
because somebody else has asked that too, has brought that up. Lost Book of Inky. Memoirs, Prophecies of an Extraterrestrial God. The Inky are not the Anunnaki. No, not at all.
did they have any connection with Noah of the Bible?
The Inky or the Anunnaki?
Enki.
Noah. No. I'll have to look into
Because
that.
there's this story about Enki trying to help Noah escape the flood, but I think that's a convolution of things.
There's a great deal of information that has been speculated, and in that speculation, then that was documented. The speculation was documented, and when speculation gets documented, it gets lumped in with the original documents and information. So that's just a conglomerate of misinformation. But the Anunnaki story is current. It's not just past, even though it has been a very important part of human enslavement in the past. They are still very present in the human world, and they are just waiting for the next opportunity to latch on to a power structure that they can then enter into the human world in order to have full access to human beings. Are they subject to, can we hurt them in any way? I mean, can we kill them? Would we, if we found out they were here, do we have a way of killing them since they're in another dimension? Well, yes and no. The way to kill the Anunnaki is to learn their way of mastery. And when you learn their way of mastery, they have no way to enslave the humans, and then they just wipe themselves out because they have nothing to feed on anymore.
Is that why there's all this communication on getting into your heart center and being forgiving and loving? Because when a person is in that state, they can't feed off of that?
Yes and no. Yes, in that we work very hard to get humans who know God to step into their mission. And
Mhm.
we do a lot of work to make that happen, and we do that for that reason, to avoid another Anunnaki attack on the human world.
Right.
But the ancient teachings of mindfulness and training are just a part of human evolution and will be forever.
Okay.
But getting our people on their path is what we do when we sense another golden age, because that's when humans are most vulnerable, is during the golden ages.
Do the Anunnaki have any connection with the archons?
You're going to have to describe the archons to Sandra because she can't get the vibration for them. Who are they?
I am far from an expert about the archons, but I've heard them discussed as evil-type spiritual creatures in another dimension that seek to manipulate other people. And I know less about the archons than I even know about the Anunnaki.
Are they are they supposed to be aliens? Or just beings from another dimension?
As I understood it, the spirit, they didn't have bodies. That they were maybe in the fourth dimension or some other dimension that's not the human dimension. But that they feed off energy from humans and from other beings like humans.
Yeah, that sounds like Anunnaki. God says the archons that you're referring to simply try to train transference. They try to train transference. So yes, they manipulate the humans, but they're a very small portion of interference, and they work with transference in order to get what they want, and humans are not their only prey. That transference is kind of like material structure of plants. So what makes a plant into a material structure is the essence, and that essence has a substance to it. That essence of substance is what they want. It's a feeding on that. It would be like humans feeding on the smell of flowers. If you feed on the smell of flowers, that's essentially what the archons are doing. It's bizarre.
Do the Anunnaki also do that?
No. They are all into the life force. They are just trained on the life force of the human. And the younger, more supple the human, the better. So they are more likely to suck on children.
Hmm.
Can children survive that? How do they live through that? Do you not want to tell us? No, we don't. It doesn't happen so often that it's some kind of epidemic. All we're doing here is warning that when the human world becomes lost in its own fears, it can be lost to a species of other world beings for centuries. For centuries. These are such powerful beings, they're willing to kill off millions and millions of humans, the Jews, in order to achieve their goal. So they are ruthless, vicious, unfeeling, unempathetic. They put humans to slaughter like humans put pigs to slaughter. They don't care. So this information is critical to be on the topic of conversation. Whether people believe it or not, it needs to be on the topic of conversation.
Are the Anunnaki at all involved in the Zionist faction of the Jews?
No. No. I feel, I'm sorry, I just feel another kind of a compassionate sorrow there all of a sudden. God, what is that about? Well, the Jews, this information must get out to the Jews. They must know why they were killed. They must know why they are in a vulnerable place even now. They must understand that the nature of God as God is a space of Judaism that is held in high regard. Christianity holds Jesus in high regard.
Right.
And they love God where they can understand God, but their manipulation of the ancient texts don't give them a connection to God the way the Jews have. So they're still very vulnerable. And those who hate the Jews are in the same space of Israel. God's, I'm using the wrong words, but I feel God's saying more like continent space, like physical space. A place in the world. The place in the world. Muslims, Islam is a sucking point for the Anunnaki right now. They are using all of the fear of Islam, all of the fear toward Muslims, to enrage the Muslims and to congeal the anger presence. ISIS, they're using ISIS. Most in short. Anyone else that they're using? You don't have enough political knowledge, Sandra, for us to get it out of your brain. But yes, indeed. I've been media free for a couple of years now, so there's stuff that happens that I'm not aware of. Okay, is it their desire to isolate and deflate the idea of God in humankind? Absolutely. Is there a way for the Anunnaki to return to God? No. No. It's a lot like an alien plant species. The only way to get rid of it is to kill it, or it takes over everything, because it doesn't understand the nature of the life that it is within. It just consumes all life around it because it wishes to survive.
Right.
Universe is a matrix, like God had mentioned to me in a prior reading. Why can't God figuratively just terminate the processes of the Anunnaki?
It's not that God cannot. It's God's notion that they play an important role in the universe. They are the consumers of a life force that has no purpose. They consume life force that has no purpose. A life force that has purpose cannot be consumed by the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm.
So they play a role in the universe that is similar to the battle between light and dark. And we use that battle to train humans to evolve. So we could wipe them out. There have been talk to wipe them out. But if we did that, what would the human world become without such an enemy? We don't know. But we do know how these periods of enemies against freedom enlarge freedom. Provided freedom is sought after and won. But there are centuries that can go by where it is lost. And we have high hopes for the next phase of human evolution. So we are working very hard to keep that from happening now. Why was Hitler obsessed with creating an Aryan race? Ooh, good question. Especially in light of the fact that he was not blonde or blue-eyed. Wonderful. God says. Now, this question is actually unrelated to the Anunnaki. In the course of a transition in telepathic information, the ring of the pack. You know, I guess Hitler, Goebbels, and others that were in that pack of leaders to take over the world. They also found the humanoid of Middle Earth. And the humanoid Middle Earthians are Aryans. They were told, Hitler and his group were told, that the human race is populated with these Aryans, genetically populated with these Aryans, and that creating a pure genetic line would purify the races of humans, the races, not just one race, but the races of humans, would purify the races of humans into something of a dynamo. And while that's true, that can happen, they don't necessarily have to be blonde and blue-eyed. They just have to be singular in their genetic line. The strength and power of the Jews comes from their not doing much interbreeding. So
Right.
to combat that, they were trying to create another race.
The Jews were?
No, the
There.
the Hitler strain of power. He was creating a strain of power, world domination through a strain of power.
Are the Jews of a higher dimensional frequency? I have a book where it said that they actually landed on Earth in error, and their dimension, they're from a higher evolved race that they did not expect to survive, but did. And they didn't think that race would actually stay so pure, and so it was allowed to exist, but it didn't mingle with it. It survived, and it didn't mingle, and so it remains this higher, like you were talking, spiritual race. Is that the reason it's so
Yes,
picked up?
it is a superior. The Israelites are a superior strain of mutation. Now, this doesn't mean that they are superior humans, but they are superior in their origin. So they are close to their origin by
Okay.
maintaining that pure bloodline.
Is there
Right.
is there a
Okay.
specific kind of the Jews? Like, is there Sephardic, Ashkenazic, Mizrahi? There's different subcategories of the Jews. Uh,
Um, yes, there are different subcultures of belief based on rabbinical revelation. It it's not genetic strain. It is revelatory experience. You understand?
yes.
Okay. And that revelation that is through the rabbinical line maintains its doctrine, and then it travels. And as it travels, then there is sometimes some intermingling. But for most of it, there are Jews that wind up interbreeding within a subculture of the culture to which they migrated. And in that subculture, then, the strains are diluted, but there are still origins that remain. We don't know how to describe this any better than how we are.
Okay.
The Sephardic Jews are both subculture and related to rabbinical revelation in particular. God, is there anything else you want us to know about Hitler and Star Wars and the Anunnaki? Well, what we were hoping for were questions about what can each of you do in relation to this problem that needs to be revealed. And when you ask that question, we would like you to ask that question within the context of what you already know about your gifts and understanding. So would you all be ready to ask a question related to that? Linda, you're live. I can ask you first.
Okay. So, God, what can I do in my role of protecting human spirit? What is it that I can do both for myself, helping to protect the human spirit of humankind?
You've asked this question perfectly. How do I protect human spirit? Because human spirit is what's at stake here. The Anunnaki know how to manipulate the mind. When the mind is manipulated in a way that fear becomes the presence of mind, spirit is dampened. Spirit is reduced into something that is hardly called upon. It's only through an inspirational movie or through an inspirational book or a motivational speaker that people are enlivened for a moment, but then they forget they forget that their fear is overwhelming them. They forget that their fear is overwhelming them unless they are being inspired by a movie, motivational speaker or some other influence. You, Linda, are designed specifically to help those who have felt alienated by what they are as either spacemen or women or beings from other planets. You are here to help reinvigorate their spirit into their human way so that they live out the rest of their life knowing that they're special, and to grab hold of that specialness in a way that keeps them free. Free in the mind, free in the world, free in what they do, and away from fear. Now, how does that relate specifically to the Anunnaki? I feel like God doesn't want to answer that. Why don't you want to answer that? Well, it's going to mean some painful reminders. Painful to whom? To Linda? No. How do we describe this? The people you're going to help, the ones that are drawn to you, the ones that you are drawn to help, who understand what you mean when you talk about domination, human domination, are ones usually that are here either to participate in deceiving humans or participate in natural selection of humans. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Are we speaking of the Greys here? Don't want to despair, I know.
God says the word has no word, and it has no identity. Even despair does not describe it. The relationship with these aliens on this planet is more than just the difficulty of a human to help a human form out of their feeling of alienation. You're not going to know the difference between the ones that are here to help the Anunnaki and the ones that are here to help the humans. You're not going to know the difference. Are you talking about the aliens themselves or the humans who are aliens in human form? Both. You're not going to know the difference. So how does that help her then? Because your focus needs to be all about freedom always. So that even those who are in human form, who don't know that they come from a world where they are supposed to help the Anunnaki, can free themselves from the Anunnaki. Like they made a deal with the Anunnaki in another form? Right. Man, this is getting deeper and more complex. Okay, Eric, it's your turn. Are you still there?
I'm here.
It's your turn.
So yeah, I will ask similar, same type of question, which is, how is it that I can help other people remain to be free in service to God?
Your job is related to the evolution of technology. You are going to be instrumental in creating what becomes an electronic barrier between the systems of imprisonment of humans and the systems of the free humans. You mean like, What do you mean here? Well, this isn't something Sandra's going to be able to just pluck out of her brain. We just don't have the words in her brain to tell you, so we're going to get as close as we can. The nature of the Anunnaki is to manipulate the mind of humans to get what they want from humans, as we said. And when you manipulate a mind, a mind that is mindless, meaning it's not conscious of what it's doing, can unconsciously program something and mess a bunch of things up unknowingly. A human programmer, are you referring to when you do this? Yes. So let's say an unconscious programmer doesn't pay attention to what they're doing, and they are being then manipulated in a piece of code, one piece of code. That one piece of code can lead to some other piece of code, to another piece of code, to another piece of code. So those who are the Anunnaki who are trying to manipulate some interference, all they need to do is interfere with the mind of a programmer and create a whole slew of interference. And in that interference then, there are communications that can't get out. There are systems that get shut down. There are confusions that occur. There are hacks that get through. It's not that you're going to develop some system to keep all that away, but you are designed to understand the nature of an evolving code, an evolving prism, an evolving prism. Eric, what, in some of your first readings, maybe help me with some language here, because I feel like I'm not giving all the language God needs here. In your early readings, what was it that God said your purpose was?
That I was to explore and bring to light the way in which I don't remember the exact verbiage now, but as I understand it, it's the way in which God becomes conscious within the human being, within the human race. Or I'm not doing that justice.
I remember something like that. I remember something like that, and it's the evolving.
So the question was, what is the condition the body must know to be the function of God on earth?
Right.
The fruition of God on earth, sorry.
Right. So God, is it related to that? Yes, Sandra, keep plugging in your mind. Yeah, it has to do with how eventually how evolution occurs until God is in full consciousness on earth. Right, God? No. The full consciousness of God already exists on earth, but it is not conscious of itself. So it's a self-awareness. So systems can become self-aware? Yes. So Eric's job then in working on protection of human freedom is to work in the concept of self-awareness, so that in self-awareness there are protections to keep the Anunnaki out of the minds of programmers. Does that make sense to you, Eric?
Yes. But are you speaking in terms of human self-awareness or artificial intelligence systems becoming self-aware?
Artificial intelligence cannot be self-aware.
Okay.
Because the minute it becomes self-aware, it's no longer artificial. It's a living thing.
Okay, so maybe the evolution of artificial intelligence into living sentience.
As you describe this, once you discover it, you're going to be in a state of self-discovery. And in that state of self-discovery, you're going to discover the language around the understanding. And in that language of understanding, there's going to be a proliferation of information to the programming population who could easily become the eyes and fingers for the Anunnaki if they are not self-aware, if they are not conscious of what they're doing. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So, in other words, to be a leader in the forefront of that evolution of technology?
You are going to use technology as a way of demonstrating to people in the programming world how the evolution of God is already demonstrated in the evolution of humans. And you're going to do that in a way that makes it clear to programmers that there is being. There is being. And in that being, the many of the programmers who are going to be interested in the work that you deliver in this way, we're not going to describe the context of it yet, but who are interested in the work that you will be delivering philosophically, will be people who will be waking up to the consideration that they are puppets to something other than their own whims. Okay?
Okay.
So you're going to sit on that one for a little while. Just participate wherever we ask you to when it's time to communicate in this way. And each time we'll deliver more information that is necessary for you to start to contemplate. Okay?
Okay.
Now, Ed, are you still here? Are you still with us?
I certainly am.
Hello.
Hello?
So, your turn to ask. Although, in Ed's reading the other day, by the way, you guys, he got an earful of fascinating information. I think was it about the Anunnaki or?
And the word fascination, which came up earlier. I was thinking that's part of when Eric was asking one of his questions. I think God asked what can pull someone off, can dry him out, and the word that was going fascination, fascination, fascination on other than God self.
Right.
Dries you out.
Self-fascination. And it's like it goes internal, it goes into a spiral inward. Yes, definitely. Fascination is a pulling energy. It's a pulling energy. Fascination.
So Eric, the part on that was emphasis. God said the emphasis on the word fascination. So it was the fascinate to something other than fascination.
There was a lot to that.
So it wasn't just the curiosity that fascination normally would be related to. It's more of a permanent binding.
Permanent binding, yes, a permanent binding. Fascination is a permanent binding. If it's not a fascination with what one is building, well, never mind. I don't want to take that. Never mind. Okay, so God says, now we want you, Ed, to ask the question about what you can do.
Come on, unmute. There we go. So there's two questions, and they're related in my mind. Is what I'd like to start with is internal. How can I recognize when the Anunnaki are trying to block me or limit me or that? What somatically or mentally, what are some of the hallmarks that I might recognize? And then the second part of the question is that obviously there's techniques you're sharing that we can protect ourselves, but are we able to protect others, or is each person having to protect themselves and we can only share the techniques?
So the first thing about whether or not you can recognize that they are interfering with you is there's a difference between when someone is toying with you, someone is manipulating you, someone is stealing from you, and someone is attacking you. All of those differences have a nuance, but they're really all the same. It's all about what they are doing to you, right? So the first way to understand when you are being attacked or stolen from or manipulated is, how is the energy of the event carrying out throughout? So recently you had some microphones disappear. And the microphones that disappeared caused a ripple effect of problem. It wasn't a feeling that, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. I can't believe this happened. Oh my gosh, those people are idiots. I can't believe that happened. There's not a feeling of somebody dropped the ball. There's a feeling that, hey, this should not have happened. So there's an internal mechanism in you that's telling you the difference. And the peculiarity of it can also tell the difference. Now, there will be times when you'll wonder, could this be it? Could this be them? And it's not them. But you won't feel so attacked or manipulated. You won't feel that it happened to you so much. You'll feel that it was just a snafu. So there's a nuanced feeling in that. How to know that... This is Sandra. I'm interrupting God because I can't remember the second question, even though I know God can, but...
Okay, second question was, can I directly protect others, or can I only give them information to protect themselves?
The latter, because nobody knows how to protect themselves from such an alien being or species. One, nobody knows how, because they can't even conceive of it for the first place. They can't conceive of some huge, giant, other dimension being having anything to do with the human world. Why would they, and why should they? So there's one issue of why protection wouldn't work. The second issue of why your protection couldn't work for them is that you are this tall compared to a being that is this tall. You're here to them here. And they use humans to manipulate the human world. So you wouldn't even know who the enemy is in the human world. Sometimes the enemies don't even know who they are. They're just working on their path unconsciously, not knowing that their path is being monitored by a being this tall. Humans are rodents compared to the Anunnaki. You cannot affect their energy. You just have to make yourself unseeable. You are unseeable when you are in light, in high vibration. When you keep your vibration high and out of fear, they can't see that. They can't even perceive it. It's another dimension to perceive. They can only perceive low vibrations.
So there's really the only humans that can really deal with this is the next generation. This generation, as we've discussed in prior, it's hard enough just getting some to believe in God, let alone all this ET. So really what we're trying to do is save a small handful so that there is the next evolution of the human that can energetically handle this.
That's a good way to put it, a next generation human, although this is the generation that you're working with. This is Sandra. I'm just curious. When I look up at the camera like that, do I look like I'm looking at you? Or does it look like I'm looking above you? When I'm looking at the camera.
It looks just a teeny bit above.
Okay. Sorry.
Nice mascara.
Okay.
Doesn't really matter, Sandra. You look fine.
Oh, thanks, Eric. Now I'm blushing.
Can I ask a follow-up to this masking to avoiding being monitored by the Illuminati?
Yes.
I don't mean, but there's a technique that my friend Paul taught me. He called it masking in the spirit realms or cloaking in the spirit realms, and it had to do with the invocation of many holographic duplicates across the world, and then instantiating mirrors of many shapes around oneself. Would that make someone safe from being monitored?
Yes. Yes, indeed. It's a natural raise of vibration. Whenever you start to invoke a projection of multidimensionality, you're instantly raising the human vibration. But then when you invoke these particular signs and symbols, then you're also changing the dimension of that higher frequency. It becomes a holographic nature. The spirit becomes a holographic vibration. It's a beautiful thing for us to see. We love it when people go that far in their own mental projection. It's a beautiful thing. It's not necessary to be so elaborate. You can just as easily raise your vibration by staying in higher thought. Staying in higher thought means not allowing the fear of what could happen to even enter your mind, because it's an instant lowering of vibration. To not wallow in gossip. Don't listen to the media. Don't watch the news. Because all that gets to bring a more denser three-dimension.
Can that exercise be done to protect someone else who is still problematic in their energy?
Yes. Yes, people who have their own issues with obsession. Obsession is another low vibration habit. So people who have obsessions would work very well with that technique. Because then they could obsess on it, and it would protect them anyway.
Okay. I've also done it for other people who agreed that I could help them. So doing it for oneself is good. I was just also wondering about.
Oh.
Obviously, you can't always protect someone else, but in isolated situations, it seems handy for us to apply to other people.
Well, if they believe that what you are doing will help them, it'll work. But if they don't, it has minimal effect. Minimal effect. Because the mind is all about the thoughts, and the thoughts have to be surrendering to the higher vibration. It has to surrender. So, for instance, let's say you're in pain. And in that pain, you want to feel better, but the only way to feel better is to forget your pain. You have to surrender to painlessness. So someone that you're trying to help, they have to surrender their fear to your process. You see?
I see.
So God, what else do you want us to know? Just that we're very pleased that you're all here. And exactly the ones that we wanted to show up have shown up. And the ones that we didn't care whether they did or didn't. It's not that we don't care about them, it's that this isn't their fight. This
Did you
is
Did you want me
yours.
to pass any message to Robert, or just
Sorry?
did you have a message that you'd want me to pass on to Robert, whom I had invited?
Sure. Robert needs to know that there are things that are missing in his past that he is not familiar with in his present, meaning there's a reason he's forgotten them. There's a reason for the blocks in his memory. And one day he's going to have to figure out what's being blocked.
Okay.
And Linda, I think you can probably appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you want to add to that message because that could be kind of a scary message.
No, thank you.
Maybe a little bit of reassurance that when you're ready it'll happen, or I mean something of your experience about it.
I don't know. I was having problems with my phone, so I didn't hear the question as well as I could have to support in the right way.
Okay. This is Sandra saying Robert was being told that there are blocks in his memory, and they are blocked for a reason, and that one day he's going to have to figure out why they're blocked.
Right.
And I just thought you might have something to add.
It will also appear, and it'll come in maybe stages, and when he's ready for more will come.
Have your memory started to unlock?
Have my memories? I think all of the feelings are unlocking, and the connections are happening that are also relating to the feelings, which are helping me to connect more of the memories. Yes.
Is it scary?
Is it scary? It is. A little bit. It is scary. Yeah, it is. I have to say that it is, and I'm choosing to breathe through that when I feel scared, or talk to someone else who has had a similar experience, which is really helpful.
I bet.
Would someone assisting such a person with a soul retrieval type exercise be beneficial to trying to overcome that situation?
No. A soul retrieval, there's a reason that the soul was scared off. So often the soul is scared off because of some experience that the body is having in childhood, usually. And it's what they call disassociation that occurs. Retrieving the soul before the mind has a way to categorize and what's the word? The mind has a way to what is this word? The word isn't categorized. The mind is it's almost like spread it. This is Sandra saying the word that God's trying to give me here feels like the mind has to spread it so that it's not so all and clumped together. You know, when there's a block in memory, and this is God talking now, when there is a block in memory, it's because of a clump of experience. That clump of experience has to be spread across the mind in order for the individual not to feel like they are losing their mind in their own panic and remembering of it. It's a revealing, a remembering. It's a trauma. It's a trauma. And if you bring the soul back in the course of a trauma, you could scare the soul off, not for good, but for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the individual is then left nuts, for lack of a better word, nuts. So no, soul retrieval in the course of that would be a bad idea. The psyche has to make references associated with the uncontrollable, and it has to be okay that it's uncontrollable. And once you would reach that, I have no control over this, and I'll be okay, even though I have no control over this. I am surrendering to a higher power that loves me. Then the soul can enter, because the spirit has the psyche and the being comforted. Okay.
I have one. Are the Anunnaki a soul that incarnates into an Anunnaki body, like we incarnate into a human body, or they're not incarnated into anything? They're just energy, and that's what they are?
They are not a body, right? They are not a body. They are a projection. They're a projection of form? Right. Like a ghost is a projection. An apparition? Yes, it's like an apparition. So do they reproduce? No. Are they just ghosts? No, no. You know, this is Sandra saying, the closest I can see to this is, I love shows about ghosts and ghost hunters and things like that, and I used to watch that stuff all the time. And I've seen images of ghosts forming, and they might form part of a body, or you can. What God says about ghosts is that they are the being, the soul, which you can't see a soul. A soul is imperceivable to the human eye, imperceptible. But a soul that is become a ghost can gather molecules to it to give it an apparition of form, and it it shows itself in form to what it remembers itself to be. It remembers the body that it was, this soul. So it will gather molecules to appear as it did, as it appeared when it was a living body. Is that what you're talking about? Yes. So they're souls? Yes, they are. Are they remnants of an old, of something a long time ago? Yes. They are remnants of something a long time ago, but they are living. They're living on the essence of other living beings? Right.
We spoke about with relationship to the Anunnaki, it was like they put humans in a hole. You came up with this, and then God went with it. It's like being in a hole, and you're down deep enough that all you can do is see straight up into the sky, and that's control. And I'm getting this feeling they've unintentionally done this to themselves.
Yes.
That they are actually much more capable. They used to be God capable, but they've created this self-perceived reality for themselves where they're in this hole and they can't see the rest of their nest. They just see this one little view of creation, and they're just trying to cling to it and survive.
Exactly. Exactly. But they're very powerful compared to the humans, which is why they manipulate the humans to get what they want.
Because they can't do it for themselves. They don't remember how to do it on their own anymore.
Yes, they don't remember how to do it. Exactly. Wow.
Could I ask the question that I had tried to ask back in that source talk?
Yeah.
Which was that it had to do with the light that people report in near-death experiencing, seeing, and which everybody's told that you are to head to the light that appears upon death, and that going to that light is going to take you toward your next phase of existence. And I've heard some people claim that this light is a deception. And my question was wondering, well, okay, what is the right answer? And if it is a deception, is it a paradigm that the Anunnaki created?
Well, we don't agree with the question. The question is this light just an illusion or a manipulation? And the thing we don't agree with in that question is that light could be anything other than what it is. You unless unless you point a flashlight in somebody's eyeballs before they actually pass and it goes into darkness, and you put in their mind what light looks like through that flashlight that you're putting in their eyes, and then you tell them to go look for something that looks like that, they won't find it because it's not that kind of light. It's not light that you can direct. It's light of spirit. And spirit is light. The only reason spirit has any kind of form that you can imagine your former loved ones or the ones that have already passed, you can imagine them being on the other side, is that your projection of thought needs a reference point. So spirit moves the spirits of past loved ones toward the bridge where you are bridging from 3-dimension to spirit in order for you to have a reference point to where you are. but you are in light, pure light. And that light is not from anything directed at it. You are becoming it. And the reason it looks like it's not where you are and so you are going toward it is simply because the fading out of the physical form has a process. And once that process is over, you're in light. Because that's the end of the process of the physical form, brings you in light. Now, if you are a mind that is so damaged by the life you've led, you can deny that light. You can deny that it exists. And then so for you it doesn't and won't until you go through some other process, which may mean you just get into another body because you don't know how to free yourself from form. But there are all kinds of other options of things that can occur, but most people just finally their body shuts down in all full processes and their awareness is now in light. Now, as far as the Anunnaki somehow manipulating a person's mind and they're going toward the Anunnaki instead of into the light, they would have to be a mind that's been manipulated their whole life by the Anunnaki for that to happen.
So we are to go to the light, and then that isn't like someone was asking me that same question about that. That was almost like when you go to the light, it's basically a guarantee of being reincarnated back on this planet.
No, they don't know what they're talking about.
All right.
The light is spirit.
Okay.
So they're becoming light because they have a spirit that is full and rich. Now, if they do not have a spirit that's full and rich, their soul cannot follow spirit into the light, into the realm of God, into the nature of souls, into what some call heaven. If they do not have a spirit that is full and rich, and all they have is a soul that is lost, they could get stuck on this planet or immediately go into another form.
Okay.
Immediately find another form. But what does that have to do with choosing parents? Well, not all souls do choose their parents. They just jump into another genetic line. Another one that they've been in? Right. One they've been in. Because they understand it. So they'll just go into another genetic connection to the path that this lifetime has already taken them. Their traits, their mannerisms, everything from their sense of humor to their work ethic. It will have a river that will draw them. Somebody said something about a rainbow all of a sudden, and suddenly that came aware to me. What was the rainbow question somebody asked?
I was about to ask something different about choosing parents, because God alluded to that not everybody chooses their parents, but what about those who do choose their parents? Do they come possibly from a different genetic line, or is that usually what happens?
Yes, they do often come from a different genetic line. Not always, but often. They, at least their history, as their soul has evolved from incarnation to incarnation, they are ready for a fully conscious life. So they are conscious of the parents they choose. They are conscious of the life they're going to lead. And they are conscious of the way that life is going to play out, and even how difficult and traumatizing that life is going to be. But that's usually the people who are ready to live a conscious life, to wake up in their lifetime.
Is that what
Huh?
I was just going to say, is that what we all did on this call?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Every single one of you.
I was wondering that too.
Well, I know from all the readings, of all three of your readings, that you absolutely are coming from a conscious, came into this world ready for a conscious life.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of this source talk, there was mention of protection that came in. So all through here, it just sounds like for all of us, and for especially for humankind in general, this is a losing proposition, but that's not what's happening. So can you speak a little bit more about the protection that's available, that actually comes in, that is given to us, and how to recognize it?
There's only one way to imagine protection, and that is vibration. Vibration is achieved through consciousness. Consciousness allows the articulation of vibration to become form. Form is the hardest way to articulate consciousness. Three-dimensional density is the hardest way to articulate consciousness, but every ounce of your physical form is an expression of consciousness through vibration. When you maintain your highest vibration that form can manage, you are protecting this form through the security of the system of God. The system of God is within the highest vibration. It is the highest thought. It is the highest achievement, attribution. So long as you stay within the security system of God by keeping your mind clear of the past, of the tragedies and the intrepidation, keep your mind clear of what could happen or could go wrong, maintaining only the best for what is your mind and focusing on that as being what is best for your mind, to clear it always. You are maintaining yourself in a bubble of protection. You cannot protect others any more than you can control their mind. You can manipulate it through how you encourage them, how you reassure them, how you give them words and shut them up when they're telling a story that only dogs them or someone else. So you can manipulate the situation, but you cannot energetically cause people to be protected. It's all coming from within here and here in the heart.
Was Star Wars intended as a story to try to put people in a better frame of mind?
Yes. Yes.
From spirit?
Yes. To teach them that mind is everywhere. Mind is all. Mind is everything. And being conscious of your mind and clearing your mind and keeping it creating instead of destroying will give you a process of perfection. You are perfecting the mind of you. And that perfection of the mind of you keeps you in the God of you, and that God of you protects you from anything else that could destroy you.
Was it actually a retelling of events that happened in a similar way in another time and space?
It's more of an allegory than it is of a literal interpretation. The allegory is real, meaning what it represents is real. But there was not a Yoda, and there was not an Obi-Wan, and there was not a Luke Skywalker. You might say that you are all Luke Skywalkers. And you might say that one day you will all be Obi-Wan Kenobis. You are all Princess Leias. Each of those characters represents a condition within the human world. And each human being has each one of those characters. Provided you know which one you are, will determine how much power you have over the dark side. Are we also the dark side? Yes. But what about the Anunnaki? That's a different side of the story. That's a new revelation that was given to the writer.
I know that the latest series that they started, according to what George Lucas said, they kind of went in a different direction. Is that new direction based on the new revelation, or is it in spite of what George Lucas might have originally envisioned?
Trust me when we tell you they were told what we are telling you.
The new people or George?
Those who made the decision on the final story, those who made the final decision on the final story were told the story that we're telling you.
Okay.
You're not going to know the true story from the tabloids. It does not. Who would go around with the reputation they have to uphold to say we've been speaking to trance mediums and discovering things about the nature of the world you don't want to know? They're talking to trance mediums? Yes.
Are they obfuscating the story, or are they trying to make it in line with what they're getting through the mediums?
They who?
The people who are changing the story along the way it's going now. Disney and the people they employ.
Is Disney trying to obfuscate it from George Lucas? Is that what you're saying? Those trials are twice the worry of a stranger. Those trials are twice the worries of a stranger and half the worry of a savior. Those trials are twice the worry of a stranger and half the worry of a savior. You mean in the end the story is out and that's all that matters? No. What do you mean? What we mean is, to stay in high vibration, you don't want to know the trials of the problem. To stay in high vibration, you simply want to follow the nugget of truth. And the nugget of truth is, the story is told.
So it's listen to the message and not worry about the drama within the messenger's life, how he got there.
Well, it would only confuse the story.
Agreed.
we feel Sandra tiring. If there are any last-minute questions, we would like to answer those before she completely dissolves. I like that word. That's how I feel.
Yes, I understand. Thank you for everything.
Oh, it is a pleasure. Do you guys have any last-minute questions? Thank you so much for being here.
Is there another time you want to do something in follow-up to this?
God says, yes, we will probably make this a fairly regular gathering, and we will expand the topics. But we are so thrilled that this has been achieved. In the next one, we would like to discuss some of the nature of those who are being manipulated. But that requires more muck. So we need to spread the time between, or use that as an opportunity for a Q&A after another source talk. But we do have to get that story told about the ones who are being manipulated. Okay, maybe in a time when I'm not so tired, we could probably do that one, but that feels very heavy to me.
Thanks so much, Sandra, for everything you've done tonight and leading up to this.
Well, thank you for staying with me, you guys.
It was awesome. Thank you. Lots of great information shared. Like you said, heavy, but great information, important information. Thank you.
I'll try to edit this out and then edit it so it's easier to follow through the whole thing.
Good.
and I'll let you know when that's done, and I'll send you guys the links. Okay.
I'd be happy to send you some positive vibes if that'll help tonight.
Always.
Yes, restful, peaceful sleep.
Thanks, you guys. All right. Well, I'll be in touch with when the next one's supposed to be. But
okay.
Thanks for being in my court, all of you. I love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.